My name is Tony. My pronouns are he, him, his, and this is Tech Talks. The co-host, I know you by Alex, but go ahead.
Hi, I'm Alex, also known as Tech, but for now it's Tony Tech Stark. My pronouns are he, him, his.
Thank you, Tony Tech.
So my name is Nick Williams. I've been a pod leader on campus for a little over a year and a half now.
So we're going to be going over how to troubleshoot your web browser. Now, if you're using either Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Safari, Mozilla, keep in mind that every single one of those web browsers has a thing called history or web browser history. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you guys here, so you can see. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay. So if I go right now, I'm actually using a Microsoft Edge. It's basically whatever you feel comfortable using on your Internet Explorer or whatever web browser you feel most comfortable with. I would recommend that you use that. There's no specific recommendations that Microsoft or Apple or Google says, oh, you need to use this web browser. No, you don't have to. You can just use whatever you feel comfortable for your needs. I just use this for my needs. So if I go here where these little three dots are at, there's a menu item. And in this menu item, I have a new tab, new window, in private window, a zoom where I can actually see how far I can see or how little I want to see, how big or small you can see, basically. Your favorites, histories, downloads, apps, extension collections, yada, 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 so on and so on. But right now, we're going to be focusing on the history. So in this history, we see that you can manage your history or your clear browsing data. So I'm going to go here where it says clear browsing data. And just before anything, just be clear. I'm just going to be clear on this. Be careful how you use this, because if you check everything, there's a advantage and disadvantage. The advantage is that you're deleting everything. The disadvantage is if you're deleting some of your personal stuff, like let's say you're entering your username and your password, be sure that if you're going to delete that you're fully aware of it. Now, if you're not fully aware of it, there's going to be dire consequences with that. And there's no way to back this up.
I like that point. I've done that many times and then been like, wait, what? And then one of the most clear things right away is that your browsing history. So like even just going into the search bar and starting to type in any website that you normally go to, that quick, already being there response is gone. So yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Yes. So we're going to be focusing on just deleting the browsing history, which is, it's already checked marked for me. Your download history, well, let's see. You might want to question this on yourself, like say, whatever I downloaded from my previous past, do I want to delete this or do I want to keep it? It's up to you. I personally would keep it because I may have to download some things again. So right. That's just my point of view. For others, they can do whatever they want. It's really up to the person. Cookies and other site data. Cookies is, they can do one or two things. One, they can cause your web browser to crash. Or two, it can slow your internet connection speed. So my recommendation is, yes, you want to delete the cookies. That way you have a better, faster internet connection, and you do not want your web browser to crash, because you want to be able to be in a productive environment. So a cookie is a small piece of data sent from a website or stored on the user's computer by the user's web browser, while you're actually using the whatever internet site you are on. So just confirm that.
So like the cookie, right? So that small piece of data, what it's also doing is it's storing like a part of your session, right? So It's giving you, so the cookie in the background is giving you a session key or a session, like a token, right? So that it can remember that it's you, right? So the cookie, every time that you go back to that website, it goes, oh, you're this guy with this token. So then I'll just put your username and your password into the box for you, and then we can just go from there, right? And then so there are cookies that are more permanent. You have permanent cookies and you have semi-permanent cookies, right? So it can get a little weird, and I've always kind of questioned and wondered why they call them cookies. Seems like a very odd, I don't know, like it doesn't
like
really
I want cookies.
Exactly, right? Who doesn't?
Yeah, I want cookies. Will you accept these cookies?
And could cookies be corrupt? Is that like, cause you were saying like it could like take down your computer, it could damage your computer? Is it because
it can damage your browser, or the way how you utilize your internet browser? It can pretty much damage it if you don't have the proper securities. You want to set your firewall to an extent. You want to be able to have an antivirus to the extent. That way, no viruses, wormholes, or worms, or adware or malware would enter your system. They'd be fully protected.
And it's like, if you're thinking like on a malicious level, like a cookie, where it could be bad, right? As if, say that you don't, say, you know how like usually you'll go to a site and it's like, hey, would you like to accept these cookies because we need to do X, Y, and Z, and usually people just click yes. But say that there's a site that's not telling you that it's logged, or it has a cookie running in the background or whatever, and that cookie in the background is actually just gathering your data, and then that data could be then sold to a third party, technically, or whatever. And that happens a lot. So that's more of the malicious side of the cookie. But there is definitely, like kind of like Alex was saying, there's also opportunity for people who are more advanced, that understand how the communication works between the cookie and the web browser, that could actually get you to do other things inside of your web browser. So
the next terminology that I want you to understand is about cache. Well, what is cache? Well, cache can represent so many things. No, it's not money when you're talking about it in computer terminology. Cache is a hardware or software component that stores data so that future requests for that data can be served faster.
So is it kind of similar, almost hand in hand with cookies?
Similar, yes and no in a way, because so basically you have a cache in your browser history. You also have memory cache in your computer system as well. So you got to be you have to like be kind of aware on which cache you're referencing to.
That was interesting that you brought up that point of the similarities, though, because I was like, my first instinct was like, nah, they're not the same at all. But then in looking at the definition of what cache is, right, Alex made a good point in that the difference really does lie in that it could be hardware or software. But it's basically that a cache is a hardware or software component that stores data so that future requests for that data can be served faster. And if you think about what a cookie is doing, it's really, it's assigning you a token so that it can serve you data on a faster level when they're doing what they're supposed to do. So they are similar. I think the difference being that, like Alex was saying, it's like you have you can have memory caches. You have a cache probably, that's storing all sorts of different things and all these different places in your computer. So they are similar in a weird way. Yeah, I never made that connection.
Before you get rid of everything, you got to make sure what you want to get rid of and what you want to save. Because if you get rid of something that you've already saved that you needed, that's most important to you, might as well just say goodbye because you just deleted it permanently. And there's no way to recover from that unless you have a backup in your flash drive or somewhere in your hard drive. So again, be fully aware about that.
Yep. I learned something about deleting yesterday. It's a little bit ahead of like browser, I guess, but my MacBook Air, I thought I was just resetting it just to, just refreshing it or whatever, but I forgot to back it up. And so it's like a fresh computer, like from just 100%. Like no passwords, none of that. So it's good times. Had to download a lot of things all over again and save a lot of things.
Yeah, when you accidentally factory reset, I'm not 100% sure, but this is also like a little bit more advanced. But also another thing to kind of remember, it is gone. So if you delete something and it's gone, even if you go into your so you right clicked it, you delete it, it's in your recycling bin. If you go into your recycling bin and then delete and empty your recycling bin, what's interesting is that all that's really happening in your memory space is that it's moved forward beyond that memory location. So the data itself still exists, right? And it's just like, that's why there's actually businesses around recovering data from hard drives, right? Because it's really about going in and then if you can find the pattern of data, and it can be kind of crazy because if you think about how much memory is in a computer and where it's being stored and how, it can be kind of crazy. But it's like when you do one of those factory reset things, yeah, I think it's that, and then doing like, there's one or two other methods that literally go through and rewrite all the ones and zeros as opposed to just moving beyond them. And I think factory reset is rewriting the ones and zeros. So that's why it's like you're back to square one.
Yeah.
Right. So again, if you see this, no matter what web browser you're using, if you're using, again, like Microsoft Edge, Mozilla, Chrome, Safari, just be aware that this is going to be in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my browser history, check that. I'm going to uncheck my download history because, again, I feel like I'm going to need my downloads in my history. And then what I'm going to do is like delete my cookies and other sites, from the data. And then here's one thing: cache images and files. Well, what does that mean? Do I want to delete the images that I've downloaded or have saved in my web browser? Because I know for a fact if I do that, I already know for myself that I've already backed them up. And I think it's just causing too much space to be in my web browser. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Here's another fun.
Can I ask a question real fast?
Yes.
So you explained a minute ago what the cookie is doing and the effect of taking out your cookies, right?
Right.
And so why like what's your mindset behind wanting to delete the cookies? Are you just trying to start from like a fresh, clean slate, basically in your web browser kind of deal?
Yes and no at the same time.
Okay. I just think it's important, like, to, like, I feel like the cookie one, right? The cookie one is where the issues tend to revolve around, right? So if we delete the cookie data, what does that, I mean, so then, I guess, if what you're trying to do is just to start from a fresh, clean slate, right? Because I think it's important to also stress that when we were talking about earlier, when we said that if we keep those check boxes, you're going to run into some issues. And this is where it's interesting. This is why I really dig this talk, because I've never really gotten to a place where I understood if a cookie was worth keeping around or getting rid of it. So,
and we also, the reason why I'm trying to get rid of it is because we want our web browser to run efficiently fast. We don't want it to slow it down, right? So because we're in COVID, because we're doing online classes.
Okay. So it's saying right there underneath, it's even telling you that you've got 6 sites that you probably regularly go to that you have a login with, and it's going to sign you out of most of those sites. So that's right. That's cool. At least it's telling you right there, like how many.
Yeah, it tells you how many sites you visited,
So another thing to point out, right, with the cached images and files, right? So what that's actually doing, right? So you see how it says frees up less than 319 megabytes, but some sites may load more slowly on your next visit.
Right.
So image cache, I remember this from a few years back. The image cache is actually, so when you go to a website, right, and they have all those images all over the website, and you go to that website regularly, right? What it's actually doing is your browser, it's caching all of the images on that website, right? Right. And then when you go back to that website, it'll load really fast because it's already got it in the cache, like how big it is, right? So it's interesting right there. It's telling you that it's going to free up less than 319 megabytes. And then the result of freeing up those 319 megabytes would be that some sites may load more slowly on your next visit. But as soon as you visit that site, it's instantly going to be in the next cache. And then the second time you visit it, it will be just as fast. So yeah, I think it's actually a good idea to clean it out and then just to deal with that recaching the next time through, because and then at least you're cleaning space up and it's not like the end of the world. So yeah, it's cool.
And if you notice here where it says password, notice how it's not checkmarked. Why is that? Why do you think that's not checkmarked by default?
So I don't have to go into my password manager and then figure out which passwords are associated with which websites, and then trying to put these long, horrible passwords. Yeah.
Well, you're partially correct about that, Nick. The other portion about this is because once you log into a certain website with your username and your password, that website already knows your username and password, so you don't have to like retype it every time you visit that website. It saves it for you. Now, again, most importantly, if you do not remember your username or your password, and if you click that checkbox to delete your password, that's it. It's gone. It's going to take you forever, maybe forever, just to remember what was the username and your password that you once used before.
This all kind of revolves back to the use of cookies, right? So it's like, so if we delete the image cache files and then we go back and then the second time we visit the site, it'll be back to that normal speed because we've recached it. We clean out the cookies, right? And so hopefully, what I'm wondering is, will clearing out the cookies, will that not, okay, maybe not. Maybe by not checking the passwords, right? It'll leave the password. That's just weird, because I thought that the cookie itself is what holds the value of the password and the username, so that when you visit the site, it gets faster. So it should be interesting to see.
So I wonder if the images, if the cached images and files don't include, I guess maybe my question is, are passwords cached similar to like images or no?
Yes, it can be, because it's in a certain cache box. Okay, So think of it like terms in money. Okay, whenever we're dealing with money, we usually put what money in a cache box, right? So it's safekeeping.
There's a serious security issue, and he brings up a good point, because passwords are not cached. Passwords are dealt with on the back end system, and they're hashed, and then they're put away in a database so that only the value that can unhash that password exists, right? And so, yeah.
You see where it says autofill form data includes from forms or cards? Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that, okay, whenever I enter a username, that autofills it. So I don't have to like, enter it manually. It does it automatically for me.
So like when you go to a website and then that little pop-up pops up and it's like, would you like us to notify you anytime that something has been updated? Like I have one on Reddit, right? So like Reddit will pop up on the lower part of my screen anytime one of the feeds that I subscribe to gets updated, right? So then it pops up. So the site permissions, just like if you click that, it's basically just bringing you back to a place where they have to re-ask you again if that was the case. So that's, yeah.
The last one is all data from the previous version of Microsoft Edge. Well, if you see right here how I have all these different little tools, these are from my previous web browser that I converged to. And if I deleted that, then I get rid of those applications. Those are the main applications that I utilize day by day. So I'm just gonna leave that blank. So the only thing I'm gonna like have checkmark is my cache, image, and files, my cookies and other data sites, and my browsing history. That's it. Those are the only three things I got checkmarked. So I'm gonna hit clear now. And now that it's all been cleared, I'm gonna go back to it, go back to the history, clear browsing data. Now I have none.
Cool.
Except for I have like the Tech Talks, the Wacom Community College website, and my math class that I have open. Other than that,
and like Oh, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah. Other than that, everything that I visited from previous past is now long gone. So I don't have to worry about it.
So were you talking about cached image, the cached image, like megabytes, seeing that being like, so what's interesting is I feel like that, for whatever reason, they've managed to figure out with whatever algorithm they have to keep that relatively low, because I never do that, right? Like, I never clear any of this stuff. And I'm looking and my cache says cookies and other site data from 39 sites. So I have 39 and the cached images and files says less than 227 megabytes. And I'm on my computer with like 5 browsers open, doing like every tab open on the browsers. And so,
Okay.
so it's, whatever they have is relatively efficient in that it's storing just as much as it needs to store from the website, and then nothing else beyond that, which is pretty cool. Oh, I'm sorry. That's just from the last hour. Okay, that's another. So on the top of your clear browsing thing, and that's another thing to look at is you had selected the last hour. If we select all time, oh my. Okay, I clicked on all time instead of just the last hour. So browsing history, 31,053 items. Download history, 1,632. Cookies. So, and if you do this, I think that's where, like, when you click all time and you clear that data, I think that's when that's like even more important to be really careful about what it is that you're deleting. One of the things about being
glad that we can all help each other.
Yeah, we become the tech people of our houses. That's one of the, when you're in technology, it's just like people are like, oh, my computer's broken. We started it lately, or what did we do?
You know, Tony, there have been a number of times where I had to come to Nick about my computer issues, because he knows from the back, you know, from like last quarter, beginning of this quarter as well, that I had some technology issues.
Yeah, all I do, what's funny when I work with students is I try to show the reality is like, I don't know anything. You get the skill of learning how to be really good at using Google. I call it Google Foo, it's so powerful, man, because you have the entire internet at your disposal. What the real issue becomes is learning how to ask the right question. It's like, it's like, so a lot of times we're trying to ask something and we can't really, we're still a little confused about it, but if we can figure out how to ask the right question, man, usually you're not rewriting the wheel, and other people out there have gone through the same things many times. So it's been fun. It's fun to share that with students and then to watch them just blossom out of that, especially with classes online. It's like, it's really like on us a lot more to really just figure stuff out.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, tune in to next Tuesday for our next Tech Talk from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Our next conversation will be how to import and export Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and Adobe Acrobat PDF Reader.
Nice! There. So, just in the same kind of fashion that we were here kind of discussing this Tech Talk, so the pod leaders, we also have an open space. But yeah, just trying to, be realistic and build up this community of students online where, we don't really have a choice. We have to be there for each other, support each other. And this is going to be something that both the IC and the pod leaders are working to grow together to build something beautiful. So, yeah. Check us out too. The information, you can find more information on the school's website about this